Hey guys, and welcome to Horror on Tubi. Today, I'm talking with the directors of the found footage horror film Tahoe Joe, talking to Dylan Brown and Michael Rock. Let's bring them on in. How's it going, guys?
Good. How's it going?
Fantastic.
Good. Where are you guys based out of?
So I don't know where Mike is right now, but we're both out of Reno, Nevada.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm outside of Carson City right now, sitting in my car in a parking lot. So,
Awesome. So, guys, tell us first off. Let's tell us everybody a little bit about Tahoe Joe. What is the movie? What's it about?
Well, it's a found footage. Probably more like a mockumentary if we're gonna like really kind of deep dive into the actual genre. About a couple of guys who are friends in real life. So basically, we play ourselves, versions of ourselves. And when Mike has a friend of his go missing, we start looking into the circumstances. And the guy was really into Bigfoot. And so I'm a very big skeptic on, cryptids, and Mike is too, but he really wants to go and look for his buddy. And it sets out this adventure where we're kind of investigating this local legend called Tahoe Joe in the Sierra Nevada mountains. And after we talked to a few people, some locals, and a couple of really interesting characters, we embark on this very Jaws-esque journey of three guys out in the unknown looking for this creature. So to say any more would give too much away.
Awesome. And so was it scripted, or were you guys kind of like improvising, or like with real people? Or
go ahead, Mike.
So what we did is we came up with some hard points that we had to make, and aside from that, everything else was no script. We just went in, and Dylan and I, we know each other very well. Most of the cast is real life friends and family and stuff like that. And so, everybody is really comfortable with each other. So we were like, okay, this point needs to be made. This point needs to be made. Go. And we just went off. So yeah, a lot of it, one take.
Nice.
One of the interesting things that we did too was Mike and I had discussed a few times, if we want the documentary feel, we have to go unscripted, because neither of us are. I mean, Mike's definitely done a lot more acting than I have, and he's getting good at it. I hide behind the camera. That's where I like to be. So all I could think of the whole time was, if I have to try and remember lines, Mike's going to knock it out, and then I'm going to be like the wooden plank, just like, reciting. It's going to be terrible. So we figured if we could just go in naturally with each other, it would sound a lot more natural, obviously. But continuity was one of those things we were worried about with no script, is we thought, okay, if we're going to go at this thing on a day-by-day basis and just have to kind of move in a direction, we have to make sure we don't get ourselves caught in some kind of a loop, or we get, into a wall or something. And so we actually decided to do a live edit where, as we were filming, I had the computer and stuff kind of at the ready, and I was dragging and dropping footage just to keep on track. And so that was sort of our scripty, I guess you would call it. And so it was a really interesting experience to be filming, and within like the hour, I'm already putting stuff into the timeline so we can watch it back and make sure it lines up. It was really interesting.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I've had some DITs do edits in the field, but usually not that involved. That's cool. That's I haven't heard anybody doing that actually.
It was. I think it scared Mike a little bit. I think he was. That's when Mike had to really make sure that he trusted me, because I'm like, hey, I got this idea. I think it'll work. Let's just try it.
Right. So how did you guys work like the co-directing thing? Like do you have a delineation of tasks, or does it just kind of like, just work together?
Well, so Dylan approached me about this project after we worked together on another one of his movies called The Flock. And he told me the idea and stuff, and we decided to go at it. And basically for months, we would just start, throwing ideas at each other. And we would come back, maybe after a couple of days, be like, hey, so we want to shoot this scene, but this really wouldn't make sense. This really wouldn't happen in real life. So what if we do this? And it was just a bunch of that back and forth. And then when we were on scene, like in the woods and stuff like that, it was more or less the same thing. We would shoot something and, you know, we kind of step back and take a look at it. And either Dylan or I would be like, okay, well, what if we do this? This would make more sense if this would happen.
Right.
And that was just it.
Yeah, you know, and that was a fun thing was I had only ever directed before. And so I kind of knew, like, if I try to be in front of the camera and direct this thing, it's not going to get my full attention on either side. I'm going to be worried about one or the other. And when we were doing the flock, Mike was really quick to jump in and direct a lot of like B-roll stuff that was happening. I had needed some stuff with these mercenary characters that were in that movie, and Mike's an actual, you know, veteran and former Green Beret. And so I kind of just told him, hey, can you run these guys through what you might do in this situation? And I noticed that people were really listening to him, and it was easy for him to sort of step into that role. So it was like a no-brainer when I had the Bigfoot idea to just be like, I don't want to direct this thing by myself. I need help. Mike's really good at communicating, so let's just bring him on board as a co-director. And so it was really cool because I would say, like, as far as splitting up the stuff, Mike does a lot more of the like the directing when it comes to keeping us on task and making sure we're in the right direction. And then my directing always seemed to come in more in like the post-production side when I was putting the editing together and figuring out where sounds would go or things like that. So it ended up being this really great kind of yin and yang thing. And there was never any stress. That was probably the best part about this whole project.
Yeah, you guys sound like you get along good off for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I always ask this, you know, not to put you on the spot, but if you were to do, now that it's done and it's out, if you were to give like an honest review of the movie, what would you say?
I've got two things that I would say. I would trim it by about 8 minutes. There's a part that kind of lags in the middle that could easily be trimmed. And we would have sunk some more money into our creature suits so we could have had more action instead of hiding it so much.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as Dylan.
Yeah,
there's a couple parts that could have been trimmed a little bit, and man, if I knew that this thing was going to blow up like it did, like on Tubi, I would have invested, you know, a lot more of my money to make it an amazing creature that, you know, we could show more action, because that was one of our big hurdles right there. You know, like we wanted more action, but we knew we couldn't really show the creature too much because people would be able to see, okay, that looks like that was made in a guy's garage, which it was.
Oh yeah, it was definitely made in a guy's garage.
Yeah, I mean, I just did a 90 grand monster movie, and our monster was made in a garage. we're all in the same boat to some extent. So how did you guys get the movie onto Tubi? How did you distribute?
So a couple of years ago, when I did my first film, I got in touch with the POV horror app. I don't know if it's one guy or if it's a team, but I've only ever dealt with one guy from there. And his name's Michael Steinberg. And Michael, super like encouraging. Like I knew when that first attempt, and I think you've been there, Mike's been there with roles he's done and stuff. You look at your first things you've done and it's like, I don't even want to sometimes admit that I did this, but it was also like the springboard to getting these connections. And so Michael, and I had worked on a few other of my projects, and he was always really quick to say, yeah, I'll distribute your stuff. I'll put it on the POV app, or we'll do this and we'll do that. And he's happens to be a very big cryptid fan. He loves the Bigfoot stuff. And so when I had said, hey, I've got a Bigfoot movie, and I should backtrack a minute. We actually pitched Tahoe Joe to like 15 distributors, and we got rejected by every single one of them.
Before it was shot or after?
After it was shot.
Okay.
Nobody would pick it up. We actually couldn't get anybody on board. And so I started to have this crisis mode where I thought maybe we didn't make a good movie. Like nobody wants it.
Right.
So I went to Michael at POV and I was like, he's done great in other stuff I've done. I had just really wanted to kind of push to see maybe somebody can give us like more exposure. And Michael's got kind of a little niche that he's in, and but we wanted to expand. Well, nobody was taking, so I go back to him at POV, and he's immediately just like, "You got a Bigfoot movie? I want it." There was no questions asked, and so I told Mike, "Hey, POV wants it, you know," and they did distribute The Flock, which got us on Tubi and stuff. So I think he'll get us there, and it was nuts. We signed the movie over to him, and it was on Tubi within like 6 weeks or something. I couldn't believe how fast it got itself up there. And it just took off from there.
We didn't even know it dropped on Tubi.
No, we didn't even know it. It just was there one day. So.
Right.
Yeah, Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve is when it dropped.
Oh wow, yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, so it was like Merry Christmas to us. And somebody actually in a group chat or something like that, somebody told Dylan, "Oh, hey, your movie's on Tubi."
Yeah, yeah. And a Christmas Eve drop was huge for us because that's when everybody's home with families and people are watching movies and stuff. So to have it hit right then, we saw this big like boost. It's just like all of a sudden our DMs are just like blowing up and people are saying, you know, like, it's on the featured page and it's in my email as a recommendation. And I'm like, what is happening right now? All this is happening so fast.
That's cool. Excuse me. So as a viewer, do you watch a lot of Tubi, or do you watch Tubi at all?
I've got Tubi's on right now. I got Return of the Living Dead Part 2 on there. I watch Tubi all the time because my favorite horror movies of all time are what I call like the cornball, cheeseball 80s stuff. Like I live for it. Action or horror, all of it. And so Tubi for me was like this godsend. Now, I don't know about Mike. The funny thing is Mike likes to make movies, but Mike's not a huge movie watcher, I don't think. So
no, yeah, my life, man, my life is crazy. Like,
yeah,
I'm so busy, you know, and so I can very rarely sit down on the couch and actually watch a movie.
Right. I mean, you're working today, right? You're just like taking a second to do this live stream, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. Yep. So, what was the approximate budget range that you guys were working in on this? You don't have to get specific if you don't want to.
I will tell you, $800.
Perfect.
That was it.
Yeah, and you know, it looks like it cost a lot more than $800 because how it turned out, like our life kind of went with the movie. So, you know, there's like an opening shot where I'm in a hotel room, you know, like in Dallas and stuff like that. I was actually in Dallas. I was in Dallas for work. So it all just added up. It added to the production value of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, that way it didn't seem like the whole thing was just like taking place in Reno. Mike was all over the place in Dallas, and we had people from friends of his from Baltimore. Is that where Toma was from?
Yeah. My cousin, guy in the movie named Toma. He's actually my cousin, and so he was visiting me on vacation for a couple of weeks, and so I was like, "Do you want to be in this movie?" You know, so he was able to film himself like in a Baltimore airport and everything like that.
That is great. Yeah. What was the most challenging aspect of shooting Tahoe Joe?
It was that suit for me. It fell apart a couple times where we're like patchworking it back together and trying to just like, we just need one or two more shots, and it's like totally falling apart. And that for me, that would be it.
Yeah, for me, that's it too. Getting the right shots, you know, that doesn't show the creature too much. And man, by the end, that thing was just thrashed because, you know, we're filming and, you know, multiple people played Tahoe Joe,
right,
myself included. And you know, so we're having to go through the trees and the brush and stuff like that, and this suit is just snagging on everything and just shredding the suit. So yeah, so the suit, that was the hardest part. Everything else though was, man, it was smooth. Yeah. It was a fun shoot. I had a blast.
We did get Shane's truck stuck for about an hour though, which was a little wild.
Yeah.
So Michael, I'm going to ask you this one because I have a feeling Dylan probably aligns more with me on this. Michael, why did you first start? Why did you want to make movies?
Well, so I did a bodybuilding competition, and Mike Rock in real life is very shy, very quiet. I kind of keep to myself. I did this bodybuilding competition, and I was on stage with a bunch of other folks, and these guys were just shaking, just scared to death. And I'm over there just basking in the lights and the applause of the audience. And I was like, wow, this is pretty amazing. And on a little side hustle thing that I do, I'll run like military base endurance events. And when I do that, I change my character. I get out of my comfort zone and I become somebody else. And so I was like, wow, you know what? I think I'm gonna give acting a shot. And then so I did stage acting. So I was in 3 plays. I played an abusive, womanizing speakeasy owner. I played Bob Cratchit in A Christmas Carol, and then I played a male burlesque dancer. And so,
Nice.
yeah, and so I loved it, man. I loved it. I loved the attention and the lights on me and stuff like that, and just getting into character. But being on stage, it was very time consuming. You know, it was 4 hours out of my day, 3 times a week to go to rehearsals. And so I retired from the stage and I said, you know what? I'm going to try giving movies a shot. It's less time consuming and stuff like that. I can have, you know, the weekdays off and whatever. And so I joined this Facebook group, and I saw that they were having auditions for mercenaries for Dylan's movie, The Flock. And I was like, well, I was kind of that in real life. So if I can't get cast as that, then I might as well just retire from acting. And so I went to the audition, I got it, I got the part, and man, I just loved it. I loved it. You know, same thing as being on stage and stuff like that. I just loved getting into character, being somebody else, and I enjoyed the whole process. And working with Dylan, you know, has been fantastic. I've worked with some other filmmakers before. I never had a really bad experience, but like working with Dylan is just, it's not work. It's not a job or anything like that. It's just fun. We just go out there, have a blast. So
yeah, it sounds like you guys really clicked. How about you, Dylan? How did you get into filmmaking?
So for me, ever since I was a little tiny kid, I mean, you can see it behind me on the wall. The Jurassic Park was like the movie that changed my life. And from like that moment, I remember having this yearning to know when I watched a movie, like, how did they do it? And so I was always fascinated with studying movies and watching behind the scenes things. And I went from being obsessed with watching movies to in high school, it was like, I want to make one, but I just didn't really have any clue on where to even get started. And a few times I had taken my dad's big old VHS camera, and my friends and I were running around out in the fields playing zombies and stuff. And so I wanted to do it, but I just didn't really know how. And then I got into college and I started writing, and I published a couple of books. And at that point it was like, okay, I don't need a budget to write a book because my imagination can go wherever it wants and I don't have to worry about paying for any of it. And so I did that for a while. But the problem with writing books for me is I wanted that like instant satisfaction of finishing something and then being able to look at it, you know, and have other people see it right away. And I realized that the only way to do that was to capture it on film and to start. So I worked on a few projects with some buddies of mine, always as like a production assistant, or I wrote a script for a crime thriller short film that a buddy of mine did. And I had so much fun being there. But there was this major like hole, I guess, in that. And it was that I just felt like I wasn't complete just being a PA or just writing it. I wanted to be behind the camera directing it. So fast forward a couple of years, I moved to Reno, and I had just got out of a fairly long relationship at that point. And I thought, you know, this is the time. I have no kids. I'm now not handcuffed by this relationship or whatever. I've got all the time in the world, and I've got a camera. Let's just do something, like go make a movie, figure out a way to make something. So I made a little short film at the university. And that's basically where it started. And it just, now it's one of those things where it's like, every time I do something, I'm already looking on like, what's the next thing I can do that's even bigger? And it just keeps going. And so it's been a slow grind to get there, but I think you've probably been in the exact same shoes where you're just always wanting to push yourself to see what can be better and down the line. I think a real filmmaker is probably never going to be 100% satisfied.
Oh, totally. I probably even to some projects' detriment, try to go bigger each time. You know, like sometimes too big for the amount of money I have. You know? But yeah, I always want to do something more, or something more challenging.
Yes.
So how close did Tahoe Joe come to your guys' like original vision for it?
So for me, it was like almost dead on in terms of I wanted to make a mockumentary that felt real. And really for a long time in that movie, when I was showing it to friends and family, a lot of them thought Mike and I were legitimately actually making a Bigfoot documentary. And it was until like about the halfway point when some of the, harder elements come in where there's, like an attack and all that stuff. That's when everybody's like, oh, you guys are out there actually screwing around. Like that's what's going on. But I'm pretty sure for a while when I was telling my wife, like, hey, I'm heading out there, whatever, like she thought like my husband's hunting Bigfoot. This is great. Like, what did I marry? And so,
that's funny.
Yeah. And so, so for me, it was like pretty dead on. It's just it's the creature itself that I so badly want to at some point have, that bigger budget so we can say, instead of just a couple of minutes of him and that whole kind of Jaws effect of less is more, like if I'm going to make the next Bigfoot movie, whenever we do it again, I want to go like Bigfoot is front and center and let's really go for it.
Right.
Yeah. For me, man, I'll be honest. So after the flock, working with Dylan approached me. He was like, hey, Mike, I really like working with you on a flock. I like what you bring to the table. I have this vision for a Bigfoot mockumentary that takes place in the Lake Tahoe area. Are you in? And I was thinking, man, a Bigfoot mockumentary? He's like, man, that's cheesy. but you know what? I'm not going to deny the man. So I'm in. And then he sent me like the opening 2.5 minutes or so of the movie. He was out there recording stuff and he put some music and some great scenery. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then so the final product I was very happy with. So I've told everybody about that movie. So I'm pretty proud about that movie.
That's great. And so you guys have both kind of mentioned possibly doing another Bigfoot movie. So would you consider following this up like as a sequel, or would you do something completely different, like in the Bigfoot realm?
We're absolutely doing a sequel.
Right.
We're giving it one of those classic, like how the 50s or the 60s would have those amazing titles on, especially on sequels, with like Wolfman or Frankenstein. They always had these great sequel titles. And so this one's going to be Tahoe Joe Lives, exclamation point.
Nice.
So the big time goal though is to get enough of a budget together that we can really upgrade our suit. And so Mike and I are going to approach it the same way. Mostly improv. We are kind of at the moment right now, we're getting some of our major key points plotted out so it keeps us on track. But this one, I think the way that it's going so far will make the first movie very fun to revisit as well, because there's a lot of things that will be answered and some things that'll be sort of probably, like taking place while we were in the woods in the first movie. There'll be some fun callbacks and things like that to hopefully get those views on the first movie again too and double up.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Bigger budget, more action. So it's going to be a wild ride.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for taking the time. Guys, if you want to check out Tahoe Joe, head over to Tubi. I would assume it's probably on Amazon as well.
No, we have not been able to crack the Amazon code.
Man, Amazon's been tough lately, and it's probably because of the documentary angle.
That is exactly what we were told, that when COVID hit, and everybody was doing these kind of fake news things, and anybody could put stuff out there, that they got really tight.
Yeah, they stopped taking them completely for a long time. They've started again, but they're much more selective now. You know,
Yeah.
and sometimes I think I don't know. I think their QC process a lot of the times isn't even a human. You know, it's like some kind of algorithm thing, and it's watching it. This is a documentary, and
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
We were actually told by a couple of people. They said, you know, maybe you guys could have got in there if you didn't use your real names, and then it would have maybe noticed that you were acting. But because we went in with real names and real locations and stuff, it just
right. Well,
live
that's
and you
fine.
learn.
I mean, honestly, you're probably doing better on Tubi than you would there anyway.
That's what we've heard. Tubi's been amazing. I mean, I didn't know it was going to blow up the way that it did.
Yeah. If you don't mind me asking, like in a ballpark, you don't have to get super specific, but like, how has it done?
Well, so we're still waiting on because it just dropped at the end of December. So our
Q1, that's right. It's just out.
Yeah. So the first quarter payments aren't even out yet. But I mean, we've already with a very limited little theatrical thing we did in our my hometown, we played it in the theater, which was great. They played it for like a week, which was really cool. So with that box office, and then with what our distributor was saying is pretty much already generated just in the month of January, we've already tripled what we put into it. So that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's a fine business model. You know, you make things for a cost, you know, and get it out, you know? Yeah. That's great, man.
I hope you triple up on Craving.
Oh God, I hope so.